There are two kinds of people walking this earth: those who believe reality happens to them, and those who know reality is responding to them. The first kind surrenders their power and lives in quiet resignation. The second, they understand something vital, something few dare to even imagine. Reality is not fixed. It's fluid. It bends, it reshapes, it conforms to the commands of a decisive, disciplined, and aligned mind. Everything you see, touch, and experience began first in the unseen in thought. That's not philosophy, it's fact. Every invention, every fortune, every transformation in human history was first a mere idea in someone's mind. What does that tell you? That the invisible realm of thought is the architect of the visible world of results. Your current life is the residue of your past patterns of belief. If those beliefs stay the same, so will your outcomes. But here's where the quantum shift begins. The shift occurs the moment you understand that you're not a passive character in your life, you are the author. That understanding alone is a crack in the concrete. And once the crack forms, light pours in. It doesn't take a miracle. It doesn't take luck. It takes clarity. The moment you become specific, ruthlessly specific about who you are, what you want, and how you will behave, the quantum field around you begins to reshape. The universe doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to signals. Most people send out weak, chaotic, fearful signals, and so they receive matching results. But the few who walk in this world with definiteness, with precision, unshakable belief, and focused emotion, they begin to attract, influence, and create beyond ordinary limits. People call it coincidence. I call it correspondence. Life corresponds to the dominant vibration of your mind. If you think in lack, you will experience lack. If you think in abundance and act in accordance with that thought, abundance will be drawn to you with mathematical certainty. Let me be even more direct. If you continue thinking the way you've always thought, you'll continue living the life you've always lived. The quantum shift requires a departure from that, a mental exodus. Once you adopt a new internal identity, everything external will begin to move. The job changes, the people change, the opportunities arrive, not because of luck, but because you finally tuned your frequency to match your desires. That's not magic, that's alignment, that's cause and effect. And now here's the most powerful piece. You must behave as though the shift has already happened, not someday, not when it's comfortable, now. Because your subconscious mind only obeys the present moment. If you keep speaking like a victim, thinking like a doubter, and walking like someone waiting for permission, you will remain in your old life. But if you speak like the future version of yourself, if you think and act and walk like the person you were destined to be, your reality must shift to mirror that. Everything begins in the mind, everything. The chair you sit on, the walls around you, the city you live in, none of it existed until someone thought it into being. Before the structure came the blueprint. Before the product came the idea. Before the success came the mindset. This isn't theory. It's the common thread running through every advancement and achievement in human history. And the same law applies to your personal life, your career, your health, your relationships, and your future. Most people are not suffering from the world. They're suffering from their own belief systems. Not because the world is cruel, but because they haven't realized they're living in a mental prison of assumptions, opinions, and inherited limitations that were never questioned. They wake up in a world they assume is permanent. They walk through routines they assume are fixed. They accept situations they assume are unchangeable. But here's the truth most never realize. Reality is flexible. And belief is the lever that moves it. There is no permanent version of your life. There is only the version you repeatedly affirm through thought, emotion, and behavior. Every time you say, "This is just who I am," you reinforce a wall around yourself. Every time you say, "It's always been this way," you put new chains on your potential. Reality molds itself around your dominant assumptions. If you believe money is hard to get, then money must appear scarce in your world. If you believe all relationships end badly, then your experience must conform to that expectation. That's not magic, it's psychological cause and effect. Think of your mind like a projector. The world you see outside is not independent of what's happening inside. Your beliefs are the film reel, your emotions are the light that gives it energy, your actions are the lens. The image you see is not reality itself, it's your interpretation of reality being broadcast outward. Change the reel and the entire movie changes. But most people never change the reel. Why? Because they confuse evidence with truth. They say, "Look at my life, it proves I'm stuck." No, your life only reflects your patterns. If you change the pattern, the result must change. But changing belief is uncomfortable. It requires stepping into a space where proof hasn't yet arrived. It demands faith, repetition, and the willingness to act on something invisible. Belief is not passive. It's not wishful thinking. It's a command, and the subconscious mind obeys commands without question. That's why a person who repeatedly thinks "I always fail" will unconsciously create failure, even in situations where success is possible. That belief will distort perception, sabotage opportunity, and influence every decision until it fulfills its own prophecy. But change that core belief, and you will watch your life reroute itself in ways you never imagined possible. You do not need to fight reality. You need to retrain your mind to expect more from it. You don't need to battle your past. You need to stop repeating it mentally. Most people live in a loop. They think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, make the same choices, and then blame the world for staying the same. That is not life happening to you, that is you happening to life. This is where the quantum shift begins. When you stop assuming that life is rigid and start recognizing it's responsive, you tap into a power that has been quietly governing your results all along. The shift doesn't require a new world, it requires a new filter. And belief is the filter. The greatest tragedy is not lack of resources, it's lack of awareness. You already have the capacity to shape your reality, but the mind that complains can never command. The mind that blames can never build. Only the mind that believes it can influence reality is trusted with the tools to do so. You've been told to wait for proof, but proof comes after belief, not before it. You must be willing to believe something better is possible before it becomes visible. You must be willing to see yourself differently before the world sees you differently. Every transformation begins as an inner revolution. Belief is the battleground, and if you win there, you win everywhere. So take this seriously. The moment you adjust your internal story, the external stage begins to shift. It starts with awareness, and it grows with repetition. Because belief is not built in a single moment. It's constructed with consistency, action, and alignment. Once you understand that reality is not fixed, that it responds to belief, you begin to see life for what it truly is. A mirror, not a wall. The moment you understand that your beliefs mold reality, you are faced with a new responsibility to decide what beliefs you will adopt, and more importantly, what direction you will give your life. But here's where most people fall short. They realize reality is flexible, but they remain vague. Vague thoughts create vague results. Indecision is the enemy of change. Until your mind becomes definite, your life remains disorganized. Definiteness is power. It's not a trait some people are born with. It's a decision. It's a discipline. It's the act of cutting away all other options and choosing one vision, one goal, one outcome, and burning it into your mental circuitry until the world has no choice but to respond. The mind that is definite does not wait, it acts, it builds, it insists. The mind that is definite emits a frequency so sharp, so precise, that reality has to bend around it. When your thoughts are scattered, your energy is scattered. And energy that is scattered has no force. But when you take all the fragments of desire, doubt, fear, and distraction, and you channel them into a clear mental picture, that picture becomes a magnet. People, ideas, and resources begin to move toward it. That's not a fantasy. It's a function of focus. Definiteness creates momentum. You cannot steer a parked car. Likewise, you cannot transform your life while standing still in thought. The quantum shift demands that you move not blindly, but deliberately. Most people change their direction with every emotion. One day they want wealth. The next day they settle for comfort. One day they believe they can rise. The next day they act like victims. But a person with definiteness doesn't move like a leaf in the wind. They plant their flag, they take root, and they move forward with unwavering intent. The reason most people don't see a shift in reality isn't because they lack intelligence. It's because they never truly commit. They want change, but they don't decide on change. Wanting is weak. Wanting is passive. Wanting is vague. The quantum shift responds to decision. Decision is the beginning of all momentum. Definiteness also clears the noise from your environment. When you know exactly what you are moving toward, distractions lose their power. You don't chase everything, you ignore almost everything. You don't entertain every opinion, you listen selectively. You don't try to please everyone, you serve a vision. That level of clarity scares the world because most people are ruled by options, not by decisions. The most successful individuals are not those who did 100 things well. They are those who did one thing with ruthless focus. They picked a direction, and they kept walking, no matter the terrain. They didn't need motivation every morning. Their definiteness was their motivation. And that definiteness created compound energy that made them unstoppable over time. Understand this clearly. When your mind is vague, the quantum field cannot respond with precision. You send out weak signals. You emit confusing patterns. You behave inconsistently. As a result, life reflects back confusion. But when you are definite in thought and action, your signal becomes unmistakable. Reality begins to echo your certainty. But definiteness is not just about goals. It's about identity. Who are you really? Who do you decide to be every single day? Because until you define yourself with clarity, the world will define you by default. And the world will always underestimate you. It will assign you a smaller role than you're capable of. That's why you must write the script yourself. You must claim the role before the stage accepts you. This is why people who seem lucky are often those who are just more certain. Their belief is not scattered. Their intention is not diluted. They wake up with clarity. They walk with direction. They speak with intent. They don't wait for the world to approve them. They approve of themselves first, and then the world follows suit. The quantum shift doesn't just require belief. It requires structure. It requires specificity. It requires action that aligns with a single, focused aim. Without definiteness, belief is a loose current. With definiteness, belief becomes a laser beam, and laser beams cut through steel. Once you believe, reality is flexible. Once you become definite about what you want, there is only one thing left to do. Act as if the shift already happened, not tomorrow, not when things feel certain, not when people agree. Right now, before anything around you has changed. That's the test. That's the door most people refuse to walk through. Action is the evidence of belief. You can claim to believe in abundance, but if your habits are based in scarcity, your actions expose your doubt. You can declare a definite purpose, but if your routine contradicts that purpose, Your behavior reveals your indecision. The world doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you embody. This is where the average mind retreats. It waits for signs. It waits for conditions to improve. It waits for applause, permission, or proof. But the quantum shift doesn't wait. It follows movement. And the most powerful movement is the behavior of someone who is already living from the outcome they chose, even when there's no physical confirmation of it yet. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between real and imagined, but it responds only to consistency. This is why acting as if is not delusion, it's training. You are conditioning your nervous system, your emotional state, and your habits to operate in alignment with your desired identity. And when the internal is aligned, the external must respond. Think of the person you are becoming not in vague terms, but in clear, observable traits. How do they walk into a room? How do they handle failure? What time do they wake up? What do they allow, and what do they reject? Now compare that to your current behavior. If there's a gap, you've found your work. You don't need to wait until circumstances change. You must become that version of yourself before the world gives you the reward. You cannot ask reality to give you what you haven't yet proven you're prepared for. The person who says, "Once I'm rich, I'll start thinking differently," has already failed. It's the one who says, "I'll think and behave like a wealthy person now and let the results catch up," who gets the breakthrough. Life does not pay attention to requests. It responds to embodiment. People misunderstand this principle and dismiss it as pretense. But acting as if does not mean lying or pretending to be someone you're not. It means committing to the version of yourself that already exists in potential and acting in line with that version until it becomes your reality. It is not fake. It is focused. You don't wait to feel confident to speak like a leader. You speak again and again until leadership becomes natural. You don't wait until you're healed to stop talking like a victim. You stop speaking like a victim, and the healing accelerates. You don't wait for discipline to show up. You schedule your time, control your impulses, and become disciplined through repetition. Every action you take tells your subconscious who you are, and that identity shapes your entire experience of life. Think about the person who wants to get in shape, but keeps identifying as someone who struggles. Their behavior will unconsciously match that identity. But the person who decides, "I am someone who never misses workouts," begins to live as that person, regardless of whether the results have arrived yet. This is not just mind, set its mechanics. Identity drives behavior. Behavior drives momentum. Momentum reshapes reality. You've already proven this in your own life. Think of the times you acted from fear. Fear became your result. Think of the times you walked with confidence. Confidence changed the outcome. You are constantly training reality how to respond to you. And it takes its cues from the standards you live by, not the goals you whisper to yourself at night. Every day is an audition for the future. The question is, which role are you rehearsing? If you keep rehearsing struggle, hesitation, and scarcity, that becomes your permanent role. But if you start rehearsing courage, precision, and presence, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's not, you trigger a ripple in the field, and that ripple eventually becomes your reality. This is why belief is not enough, and even definiteness is not enough. You must move. You must behave in exact alignment with your declared vision as though it is already done. You must speak from that identity, work from that identity, and persist from that identity, because until your behavior reflects the change, nothing around you will. The world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you act like you already have. Once that shift is internalized, there is no going back.